bunch of different ways you go with this next one, Michael, and sometimes leagues are won and lost based on the waiver wire. Who was the waiver wire pickup of the year?
Yeah, a lot of different ways. You're right that you could go with this. For me, I'm going to go Tyreek Hill because he's someone who definitely wasn't drafted. Jay Ajayi, Jordan Howard, I think those are guys who were in this group too, but they were drafted in some leagues. Tyreek Hill was on no one's radar, and this guy did everything for the Kansas City Chiefs and for his fantasy owners over the second half of the season. 547 receiving yards, 6 receiving touchdowns, 252 rushing yards and 3 rushing touchdowns. I'm sure his owners and championships love seeing that 70-yard touchdown run against the Broncos on Christmas Day. And hey, he added 2 return touchdowns as well. So he was a Swiss Army knife for the Chiefs. When you plugged him into your wide receiver spot for a fantasy league, you weren't exactly sure how the points were coming, but you felt pretty good that they were going to be there no matter what. It'll be interesting to see where he ranks next year because he sort of has maybe a Tyler Lockett feel from 2015. But this was a great season for Tyreek Hill, and that he did it all in the second half of the year made him an even bigger fantasy weapon.
All right, speaking of players who did it in the second half of the season, and I don't know if you want to go with Tyreek Hill again here, but what about late bloomer? Maybe somebody, and maybe Hill doesn't really qualify, somebody who didn't do anything fantasy-wise early in the season, but really turned it on in the second half.
Yeah, this is actually going to be a name that we've known in the fantasy universe and the NFL universe for a long time. Deshaun Jackson, super quiet over the first half of the season. 27 catches for 416 yards and a touchdown. Took a back seat to Jordan Reed, took a back seat to the emerging Jamison Crowder. But he stepped up and was Kirk Cousins' #1 guy over the second half of the year, where he had 555 yards and 3 touchdowns. Those first 8 games, a little less than 6 fantasy points per game in a standard scoring league. These last 7, a little bit more than 10. Deshaun really turned it around, basically doubling his output in the second half compared with the first half. Guy who always gets it done, who has made a living literally on being a consistent big play receiver. He did that again in the second half of the 2016 season.